Okay, this is the last one that I watch early, I swear. Hey, it's Romania Black. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry because the last two episodes of Tsurune have been amazing. 5 and 6 have been amazing, and I've been wanting to watch ahead, but I know I usually don't watch crazy far ahead without acknowledging any spoilers. But again, I'm going out of town for holiday, and I'm going to be coming back the day before this episode is supposed to come out. So I felt like I needed to go ahead and watch ahead and have it ready to go. So for the Rule of 8, for the amazing Rule of 8 episode that will probably happen next week, I should have lots and lots of comments by then, because by that point, episodes 5 and 6, I'll have plenty of comments for. So yeah. So episodes 4, 5, and 6, I should have lots of comments to talk about with episode 8. So I had to watch ahead. This is my last one I'm watching ahead before I see other comments, but I'm just so excited because, like I said, episodes 5 and 6 were amazing. I love the camaraderie. I love the Nakama building. I love getting more information about the game, about the tournament, and getting more about Kurosaki, which has Shu and the twins and the other characters as well, including our bespectacled Presidente, included as well. So I'm really, really excited. And getting a little bit with Minato and Seiya, and how Seiya's like, are you going to be able to see Fujiwara again and handle it? And Minato's like, oh, it'll be fine. He's probably forgotten all about me. I'm like, lies! Bold-faced lies! He's forgotten about you. He's shooting for you. Minato, you dunce! So setting up all this tension and everything with these characters, I'm really, really excited about it. So we'll see, right? I'm looking forward to seeing how this tournament starts. We're on episode 7, so we're past the halfway point of the season. I'm glad there's a season 2. I can't express to you how excited I am already that there's going to be a season 2 in January. I'm like, oh good, we can go right into season 2, week to week. I'm so excited. I'm going to be watching a lot of shows week to week. It's going to be kind of insane. So yeah, it's going to be a bit crazy, but that's okay. But yeah, I'm really, really looking forward to it. Very much so. So I'm not going to waste any more time. We've spit long enough, but yeah, so I'll have lots of comments, I'm sure. By the time while I'm on holiday, I'll be catching up with everyone's comments from Tsurune, episodes 4, 5, and 6. And so when we get in episode 8, I'll be like, oh yeah, so all these comments. So it'll be like an hour-long debrief, but I'm sure it'll be fine. And maybe I won't have a lot of comments. We'll see. But I'm really excited. I hope you all are too. But we're getting into the preliminaries now, baby. We got a schedule. We got everything. Tsurune has defied my expectations so far of how sports anime treats its characters and the layers in them, and how it treats the storyline so far. It's had little subversions that have been really exciting and fun. Kind of like Free. We did talk about this a little bit in the Discord, and that, you know, Free has such a like vibrant, over the top, ridiculous vibe to it, and I love it. But Tsurune is so much calmer and chiller and just takes its time. And it's like, and Whoosh and Sweebian and I were talking in the Discord about it, that it's very much your characters kind of reflect that. Like the characters of Free are so like over the top and divish and flamboyant and like outgoing, and it kind of matches the chaos of that show, which I love. And the characters are much more introspective and communicative and calm, and it kind of reflects the activity of Kyoto itself. And so again, Kiwani, I'm glad you didn't make the same show twice. I'm glad. There are little subtle similarities between the characters between those two shows, but I love them both for different reasons now. So that's exciting to see. So yeah, we're going to start Tsurune episode 7. I'm so excited, and we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and all right, y'all, let's do this. So she was terrifying. I'm really glad that I'm going on vacation after this episode, because I'm not gonna lie, the urge to binge this series and the rest of this season is really hard. It's really hard. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to hold myself back once I start. I don't know, because this episode I was just like, oh, that's it? Well, I want to watch episode 8, but then I'm like, no, I don't have time to watch episode 8. So I'm like, ah! But oh my God. So, wow. This series does a really, really good job of being very subtle. They talk about in the episode the idea of Kaito being subdued. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff under the surface that's like bubbling, right? It's kind of like on a simmer. And there's lots of different things. I put this little thing up here, unanswered questions, because this episode brings up a lot of them, especially with Shu and Minato, and I want to kind of note that. But yeah, so, and just kind of where our characters are at this point. I think it's probably good to know where our characters are at. So I'm going to kind of do like a little thing right here to kind of go through it, because we have Nanao. We have Nanao over here and where he's at. And then we have Seiya. We could put Seiya right here and where he's at. Seiya's probably the least that we focus on in this episode. Seiya's like kind of, although there is some stuff with Shu and Seiya that I'm going to be like, okay. And then obviously Kaito. Poor Bless his heart, Kaito. I can relate. Poor Kaito, like him. And then obviously Minato. Obviously Minato over here and what he's going through. And then I wanted to go ahead and nab two specific ones here. Try to get two colors of purple. We have Ryohei right here. We're going to talk about him. And then talk about Shu. Why not? And kind of where they're at. So we've got all of our characters and where they sort of at. The characters I'm not putting on here will obviously touch base on them, but like unanswered questions, and I would argue that things to put on here also speculations and theories to put here, because yeah, there's a lot going on in this episode. There's a lot of character work. There's a lot of stuff being led up to. I'm like, oh my god. But yeah, Shu is just, he's no nonsense. She was just like, no, Shu is kind of like if Minato and Kaito could combine into one, because Shu seems extremely hyper competitive, kind of like Kaito, but at the same time, he's super calm and relaxed, sort of like Minato, or at least how Minato seems on the surface. So yeah, oh my god. But yeah, so the one thing here is that we have the Kyoha Kyudo Hall. So we have Minato going to this Kyudo Hall. Now the question is, and this is obviously like back whenever he was like in 5th or 6th grade, like before middle school. So why was Minato at the Kyudo Hall? There's something obviously to it, and I don't want answers. I'm going to be posting a lot of theories and thoughts on here. Please don't answer my theories. Don't say, oh, it's because of this or because of that, or maybe you'll find out later. Like, I'm sure we will. I'm just thinking out loud and posting theories about what I think, what I'm wondering in this episode, because there's a lot going on. But yeah, why was Minato looking for the Kyudo halls? I'm assuming he's been chasing after that Tsurune all this time, but I'm assuming that maybe he was trying to find somebody to teach him Kyudo because his mom had kind of inspired him to want to go out and do it. And so he had been going to different Kyudo halls trying to like get some mentorship or try to find like somewhere he could like practice and things like that. And this was one of them. So interesting. Obviously that one woman is clearly Shu's grandmother. She has the same hairstyle and everything. But he's never been here before, and that's when he sees Shu, who's just sitting there learning. So it's established that Shu has been trained his whole life, it seems. Trained in Kyudo his whole life. Now, that's not to say that none of the other characters have been, but we're getting little bits and pieces about his character. And yeah, it's one of those, it's like love at first sight, right? He sees Shu for the first time. He's like, who are you? And Minato's like, oh, hey. And it's just like, it's love at first sight. I'm shipping them so hard already. And then Minato's like, okay, it's time to get up and go. The day of the tournament. I love that. And Minato seems like he's in such a good place, right? He just sees like he has the preliminary program. He seems like he's happy. It's like it's the first time seeing him for so long. And just looking at, he's like, the forecast was right. It was going to be cloudy today. And then he like thinks back. He's like, why'd you make me the Ochi? So Minato is wondering, and this is like a question on here, of why is Minato the Ochi? I'm assuming we're going to learn about the significance of each of the roles as we go. But why is Minato the Ochi? And Tommy Sensei seems to have a reason for it. So what could that reason be? There's some kind of explanation, but we're just not sure yet. You'll all get a lot better once you realize the reason. So they just have to realize it. And then so I like that he opens up the phone. So we have all the different little things. Seiya says, morning, everyone. Of course, Seiya greets everyone with good morning. And he has Kuma as his profile picture. Ryohei says, it's time, I'm so nervous, which is very on point. And his image is like mochi or something, food. And then Now says, let's give it our all. Seems like very Nanao. Has the frog. And then Onogi has the cat, and he's like, don't be late, especially you now. Like, their own responses match their personalities so well. It's so cute. Like, that's the one thing about this series. It's so detail-oriented, and everything is so character-driven that it matches them absolutely perfectly. I love it. That's so great. But yeah, and then Minato's like, I like that he's in a good place, right? He's in a good place throughout this, and looks at that uniform like, okay, I'm going to be doing this over again. Let's go. So Minato, he seems mentally in a good place. He's in a much better place than he was at the start of the series. Like, he's kind of come to peace with the fact that he has target panic. He's come to peace with it. People know about it. He's like, nope, it's there. I can't do anything about it. I can only do what I can. I feel like Masa being there is a big anchor for him as well, because his mentor's there. It's somebody he can turn to if he needs to. So yeah, this episode though, lots of stuff going on. And so Nanao is like someone that is very, very laid back and calm under pressure. That's what I like about Nanao. He's very calm under pressure. And what I loved about this episode was it captures like we see in sports animes tournaments all the time. You see a tournament all the time. Like, I've watched many sports anime where, you go to a tournament, you go to a qualifier, you see people there and you're like, hey, and all this. This is like one of the first series I've watched that captures the emotional resonance of what it feels like to be at a tournament. Like, this is probably the first series that I've watched where I was like, all the anxiety and tension, no, that it's there. And it captures it so beautifully. Because, yeah, if I did competitive speech for years, and I'm coaching it now. And so, like, yeah, you kind of get that sense, like, when you go to a tournament, it's so different than practice. And there's just, like, the energy that you feel, and the competition, and the people there, and everybody's all excited, and you have, like, butterflies in your stomach, and you're, like, wondering, like, did I do this right? Am I doing that right? Like, this episode perfectly captured that emotional vibe of a tournament, and it's a 2D animation, and it's like, it does it so perfectly. I'm like, no, that's it. That's exactly what it feels like. And the way that we see Kaito and Nanao handle their stress, like, Nanao's just like, it is what it is. We've come this far. We can just do what we gotta do. But Kaito gets very nervous. You can tell that Kaito, he is easily nervous with competition. He's kind of similar to Ryohei in that regard. Ryohei later, as we'll find out, kind of has the same deal going on, but he gets very nervous for competition. He's like, I don't know what to do. And so he doesn't want to wrinkle his outfit or anything. The fact they have to travel on the bus in those outfits, that would be kind of uncomfortable. But Nanao's like, it's okay. You're going to be sitting down half the time anyway. It's fine. And Kaito's just kind of stressed because he's like, if you stress yourself out, you'll be stiff when it's time to shoot. And he's like, well, how am I supposed to relax? We're a new club. Like, Kaito's worried about the reputation of the club. He wants to make a good impression, right? He wants to make a good impression and start off on the right foot, which he's not exactly doing everything the way that you should if your goal is that, but it's fine, right? It's okay. But yeah, Nanao he's like, it's our debut match. First impressions are really important. And Nanao's like, oh, you think so? He's like, I thought it was, we're new, so they'll give us a pass if we mess up. Oh, I get it. He's like, you want to charge on in and get people saying, hey, what school is that? Kazuma, you say? Oh, a powerful foe's entered the stage. And Kaito gets really embarrassed. He's like, shut up now. He's like, you don't know what it is. He's like, everyone's been working really hard for this. I want to see it pay off. So yeah, it's not just the first impressions. He's like, we've all worked really hard. we want to see the fruits of our labor. And Nanao's like, yeah, that's right. And if you stress out, we're not going to get that. He's like, we have to make sure it pays off, but don't be stressed. But yeah, oh, Minato, seeing Minato in such good spirits, it's so good. Like, he's just hugging Kuma, having a great old time. It's like, oh, and then Seiya shows up, and he's like, oh, yeah, don't mind me. And so then the mom, Seiya's mom, decides to take them there. So it's nice. They put the bows and everything in the middle of the seat. And the mom is like, wow, this feels really nostalgic. Like, back in the day, you guys were back in the day just going to tournaments every other weekend. And it seems like it's just like the old days, right? And so it's kind of cool. She's like, this feels very nostalgic. And she's like, wasn't there a third one amongst you? You know, a really handsome one? So, let it be known that Shu is canonically handsome. He is the prince, after all. He is the prince. And we'll have the whole knight and prince persona here a little bit later, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, so the knight, yeah, he's the prince, right? There's three of you. What was his name again? The really handsome one. And Shu and Seiya and Minato are like, oh yeah, him. And I like that. It's interesting that Seiya's just like, Mom! If we were looking at this as a love triangle between Seiya and Minato and Shu, which I hadn't been until this episode, but after this episode, I'm kind of like, okay, I kind of see it. But I like that in that moment, Seiya's just looking at his mom like, Mom, you're not helping my cause. Because Minato, as soon as he says that, he's like, yes, yeah, he was handsome. Mm-hmm. And Seiya's like, Mom, focus on the road. She's like, okay. So yeah, so it's interesting that Seiya and Minato are bringing up Shu, but they can't kind of keep him at a distance, right? They're bringing him up and they remember him, but they don't really want to talk about it. Like, so something has happened, right? So I want to know more backstory on Seiya, Shu, and Naramiya and Minato. I want more backstory on them because I feel like there's stuff there that we've not tapped into. And I feel like by the end of this season, we're going to at least touch base on it and figure out like what the deal between the three of them are, because there's some stuff between the three of them. And so then we cut to Ryohei, who, bless his heart, he has the 500 yen piece. He like tosses the coin for good luck. For good luck for him and his team. Like, I like that Ryohei's the superstitious one, because of course he is, but he wants the team to do really well. He's like, show me a little love. It was a splurge. Bless his heart. Ryohei's so sweet, and he wants Minato to recover from his target panic. Ryohei is best boy. He's so sweet and kind, and he just wants the best for everyone. It's really, really sweet. But yeah, we get everybody at the tournament gathering, everybody in their different jackets. I love that, obviously, they can't wear the traditional footwear walking around the campus. That doesn't make sense. But it's just kind of funny seeing them walk around in their shoes with their hakama on. When we did speech, you know, you could wear flats, but if you wore like a suit or a skirt suit or whatever, you couldn't wear like chucks with it. You needed to wear like a high heel or a shoe, a nice dress shoe, or a flat. You couldn't wear just like your Converse walking around the tournament. It wasn't, at least our team could not. It was not considered professional. But yeah, so then we have everybody showing up, and I like that Seiya and Minato together showing up to meet everybody. And then I love all their stuff is out there in the background. It's really cute. All their backpacks and their bows and everything are all gathered up. They're all distinguished by colors, which is really cute. And yeah, Tommy Sensei is like, good, you guys are all revved up for today. But he says something there. He's like, what I like that he tells him, he's like, I'm glad you all are really high-spirited, but don't get too spirited just because it's a tournament. And that was always something that our coach would say to us for speech. He'd be like, look, just because it's a tournament and it's a different environment, don't change the wheel. Like, do what got you here. You've been practicing your speech this one way. Don't decide to change it up on the day of the tournament. That is a recipe for disaster. Don't do that. Just do exactly as you've practiced and you'll be good. And so I like that Tommy Sensei kind of goes along with them there. I do want to make note that poor Yuna and Shigaraku, those poor girls, they're like, this is their first time in a tournament, and so they're super, super nervous. And it is really, really easy to do so. And this is Kazumai's first public match, their first time ever competing. That's the kind of thing that Masa's like, look, we got to start from somewhere. And we're not going to be perfect the first time. We're not going to be like an established school that's had 20 years of prestige and experience. Like, this is our first debut match. We're going to just handle this like we can, and it'll be all right. And like, I can't tell you not to work yourselves up, but try your best to relax. And he's like, it's easier for those who are used to tournaments, but Shiragiku and Hanazawa, this is their first time. And Shiragiku, I felt bad for her because she had a fever and competed. And Masa noticed. He was like, something's wrong with her. He's like, are you okay? Is everything fine? She's like, no, it's okay. Like, he instantly knew something was up. And it's hard, like, trying to compete if you don't feel good. Like, he knew what was going on, but she was like, oh, I'm just nervous. And he's like, oh, well, okay then. Masa's so freaking tall. He's a really tall guy. And he's like, okay, well then a tournament has its own unique atmosphere. Yeah. He's like, it's just something you have to get used to. He's like, yeah, it's like you can't just walk in and expect everything to go a certain way. You just got to go with the flow. And I like that he tells him, he's like, if you feel overwhelmed, just roll with it. Just go with it. Don't let it take you. Like, just don't drown in it, but just relax. Struggling is only going to make it worse. Keep calm and let it carry you a while and look around. And you'll find the presence of mind to breathe again. Okay. And so they have to go get ready for the tournament and stuff. And so, yeah, everybody, it's interesting. I like this banter before the tournament where they're like, this is a prefecture. It's a much more popular match than in high school. They're like, it's much more popular here. What do they say there? I want to go back and say that. They say, I didn't think there'd be so many. And he says, well, in our prefecture, this is a much more popular high school for martial arts than judo and kendo. Okay, so they're basically saying that this high school is pretty popular with kudo, so it makes sense there's a lot of teams competing. Again, Kaito is not sitting down. He is totally stressed, right? And I'd say that Nanao is the least stressed out of all of them because he's even taking his jacket off. He's just like chilling out like, hey, everything's fine. But Kaito, everything's... It's all like, you can kind of tell... I wonder, like, the stress levels of everyone based on where they are with their outfits. Like, Kaito, everything's zipped up. He's standing. He's got his arms folded. His body language suggests that he's tense. Seiya, the jacket is still zipped up. Like, he's a little stressed, but he's kind of loose there. Ryohei and Minato seem about the same, and then Nanao's take the jacket off. Like, totally. Interesting. And so, like, there's so many girls in Kyudo. In many co-ed schools, it seems to be either half and half or more women than men. And then, so this part's interesting. We talked in the last episode about, like, is Nanao even interested in girls, or is he just putting on a front? And he says, well, you know, he's like, there's probably a reason. And Ryohei is like, oh, I know why there's so many girls in Kyudo. And Minato's like, why is that? And he's like, oh, well, because. He's like, you know, it's the Hakama. They look awesome in it, right? And so Nanao's like, I can see why girls would join up in hoping to wear them. But if you notice, Nanao's not blushing at all. Like Ryohei is like, well, it's because the girls are wearing the kakana, you know. But Nanao's not blushing at all when he says it. And he's like, oh, that's not really what... He's like, I didn't mean that. And Nanao's like, oh, don't be shy. They look nice in a kama with a jacket or a parka on top, too. So, again, just establishing the banter between Ryohei and Nanao, right? And then, of course, Kurosaki shows up. I've noticed every school in Japan, every sports team that, like, if you want to have an intimidating sports team, put purple in their uniform. It's like Shiratorizawa. It's like Kurosaki. It's like the school that, oh God, well, he's Fujiwara too on that team in Run with the Wind. So yeah, that school as well. It's like, if you want to have a tough school, put their uniforms in purple. And they just have an air about them. Yeah, they're the favorites to win. And you see the president and all them. I bet they're good. And then of course Nanao can't help but speak up and say, that girl's cute. Maybe I'll go talk to her. So Nanao, he has to like put on, he makes it a big point. He makes a point to like pick out a girl. And again, it just seems odd with his personality that he'd do that, but I'm like, is it just a front and he's just saying it just because that's his attitude? But yeah, he's like, maybe I'll go talk to her. And Kaito's like, hey. And he's like, oh, scary Kachan face. Mama. And so then the twins show up. I don't like the twins in this episode. They're so mean. Because yeah, I get that they wanted to defend their fellow teammate that was a girl. I get that. That's nice of them to defend her, being like, hey, you know, quit talking about her or whatever. She's a person too, you know? Like, that would have been fine. But then they stick around and make matters worse. And I'm like, dude, you guys could have just defended her and moved on, right? And been cool about it. But instead, they're like, oh, hey, Playboy. Like, our girls aren't interested in shallow dreamers like you. And Ryohei's like, oh, shit. And then now it's like, oh, well, sharp ears. Sorry about that. You heard me, huh? And then that's when the twins are like, oh, we're the Fujiwaras from Kurosaki High School. And all I could think of was, I just realized, I didn't say this in the last episode, but Fujiwara, that's the name of one of the setters in Haikyuu, who's kind of sassy too. So are we doing like an in-universe Haikyuu Tsurune? Is this Sugawara's cousins? They seem like they could be. I would believe it. He's like, it's nice to meet some fellow first years. And then they're like, they do like, you two, weren't you the guys on Shu's team in middle school? Okay, how do they know that? Unless they've seen a picture of them. So, does Shu have a photo with Minato and Seiya? I'm thinking he does. I'm thinking he has a picture of Minato and Seiya, because how would the twins know what they look like? Their names aren't on the front of the jacket, so how would they know that that's Seiya and Minato unless they've seen a portrait that Shu has had of them? So probably, and they know their names, so clearly Shu has told them their names, right? Narumi and them. He was the Ome in that 3-person team. And then they're really mean here. Like, you can tell Kaito's just like Nanao's like, what are you saying? And Seiya's not happy about it. Seiya's face is like, you guys need to shut up. And Kaito's like, y'all need to shut up. And Ryohei's like looking at Minato like, are you okay, man? And Minato's just like, I mean, you're not saying anything that's not known. But they really are kind of mean about this. They're like, oh, he got target practice and self-destructed, didn't he? And Minato's like, wow, gee, thanks. Yeah, Seiya's not happy if you look at his face. He's like, you still got target panic? And they're like, well, we fire fast too, so it's no biggie. And Kaito's just like, I'm about done with y'all. They're just so mean in this moment. I'm like, you guys need to shut up. And they're just, I don't like them. And then, yeah, Kaito's like, you sons of bitches. Like, standing here like a pair of half-assed doppelgangers. But that's all they wanted to do. They wanted to just egg him on and antagonize him. They wanted to get a rise out of him. That was the whole point. To get him fired up. And Seiya's like, stop it. Yeah. And so I like that Kaito, he says, I'm not going to let them talk shit about my team. But really, Kaito is standing up for Minato. Kaito is not happy. Not happy about the twins' smack talk. Not happy about it. Which I'm like, good for you, Kaito, in defending Minato. But yeah, Seiya's like, it's not going to do anything. That's what they wanted from the start. And Minato's just like, oh. And then the president's like, hey, what's going on? The president's like, are you serious? What are we doing? We're having a fight. And they're like, oh, it's nothing, Prez. And they're like, oh, he's the president. And that's when Ryohei's like, oh, crap, I know him. And then, yeah, then Shu just goes Sin, Mon. Like they've already developed nicknames, but those are like the most cold nicknames possible. And then, yeah, Minato's like, oh, it's him. And that's when he stands up. He's like, I'm going to stand up because Shu is here. Oh my God. Like this tension. The music and everything during this, the music, the tension, it was palpable. Like the strings picking up beat. I was like, it just got so tense. I was like, what? This series was so calm. And then, nope, not anymore. He's like, they realize these are old friends of mine, decide to say hello. I'm like, Shu defends them. Which I'm like, Shu, they were being like total bitches. So he defends the twins. Which, granted, they're his friends. They're the only first years on the team, so he defends them. They are his teammates, but I'm like, your teammates are kind of dicks. So, and he's like, friends? He's like, we were in the same year at Kurosaki Middle. Do you remember them, senpai? Okay, so, well, and that would make sense. The president there has been at Kurosaki from start to finish, so of course he would probably remember Minato and Seiya, but maybe not. He's a few years older, right? And he's like, our middle school. And he's like, it's been a while, Seiya and Minato. And he's like, oh, Shu. And then Seiya says, oh, it's been a while, Shu, and jumps right in the middle. So Seiya, it's interesting that we have Seiya stepping in to protect Minato from Shu. Why? Again, the mystery of the season. Like, why does Seiya feel the need to step in the middle of them? Like, what has happened to them that he would feel that? Because Shu seemed Minato seemed excited to see Shu, like nervous, trepidatious, but seemed like he was excited to see Shu again. And Shu is like dead level, like totally emotionless about all of this. But Minato seemed like he wanted to see Shu again. He was kind of like nervous but excited. And then Seiya always wants to be that buffer, being like, okay, let's not let it get too crazy. He says, oh, it's been a while. And Shu can see right through it. He's just like, oh, you're the same as ever, Seiya, still serving as Minato's knight. So, does that make Minato the princess? Does that make Minato the prince or princess in this scenario? If Shu is the prince, is Minato also the prince? And then Seiya is described as the knight that's protecting him? I'm like, is this... He says he's the knight. Like I said, I didn't think that there was like a love triangle between Seiya and Shu and Minato. But after this episode, I think that maybe Shu thinks that there is. I feel like Shu believes that Seiya is constantly in between him and Minato, keeping Shu from getting too close. And Minato doesn't seem to realize that Seiya maybe has feelings for him or maybe is doing that. And Seiya seems aware, but he just doesn't know. He knows. It's so weird. Like, Shu thinks that Seiya likes Minato. Seiya may like Minato, but doesn't think that Minato likes him. Minato likes Shu, but Seiya keeps getting in the way to keep them from this happening. It's just this big old web. I'm like, what is... Ah! It's just this big old web. It's this big old darn web. Okay. Yep, sure. This just... What do we do with this? He's like, you're still serving as Minato's knight. And he's like, I was surprised it wasn't just Minato. You chose a different high school as well. And he's like, well, you're the same as ever, too. He's like, yeah, I heard you landed a 20-shot kaichu recently. He's like, the young prince lives on. So there is some bitterness between... There is some bitterness between Seiya and Shu, which, again, lends to that whole, like, love triangle thing where there's a little bit of bitterness between Shu and Seiya. That Minato's just kind of like... the question is, how much does Minato know about it? What does Minato think of it? What has happened between these three? Clearly they've had a falling out, but what exactly are the details? I'm sure we'll find out. Don't spoil me. But yeah, it's... Oh my God. He's like, well, I hardly care about the title. And he's like, Minato, are you participating in individuals? So Shu says he doesn't care about the title. So Shu doesn't care about titles. He's clearly very competitive, but he doesn't let anything bother him because you could see why the prince title would maybe be like, make fun of him, right? And Minato's like, I'm not doing individuals, just tomorrow's group match. And he's like, oh, well then we won't face off until tomorrow then. He's like, it's a shame, but I look forward to it. And Kaito's just like, what is this? Why do you have history with him? Like, Kaito's just like, what the hell? What is this? What is this nonsense? He's like, I'm participating today. And then I was like, the twins are like, oh, so what? Like, just... The twins, like, throw it in Kaito's face. Like, Kaito, he wants to stand out and be noticed and be respected. But I don't think that what Kaito doesn't realize in this moment is that there is a lot of history between these three. These three have history. And Kaito feels kind of out of the loop. And it's like the best archer there is noticing Minato, who has target panic and has not shot well this entire time. And Kaito's just like, what the hell? And the twins are just like, hey, you need to tone your ego down a little bit. And for the twins to say that, oh my God. It's crazy. There's no way he's dreaming about competing with Shu. And Kaito thinks in some crappy little Kyudo club, oh, gunning for Fujiwara Shu, the ace of this prefecture's best school. Pretty ballsy. And that's like, in that moment, now's like, whoa, let's calm down. I do think that Kaito, his ego does get a little bit of the better of him, but I don't like the twins calling their school crappy. I'm like, that's not nice. You guys don't have to say that. They're a new school. Leave them alone. Be quiet. And so then he's like, and that's when Shinichi and Manji, the same to you too. Yeah, I'm glad that the one guy, Daijo, speaks up and he's like, shut up, you two. He's like, Daigo, please take them away. I like Daigo's like, all right, let's go. And he just picks them up like a bunch of cats. Come on, you mass production models. He's like, get out of here, you factory inventory creations. And the president's like, okay, well, I'm glad we got that sorted out. He's like, it's been a while. You're Takaya-kun and you're Narumi-kun. It's like, that's the thing. Kurosaki was so big of a school that even though this president is only a few years older than them, he doesn't remember them. I think that says a lot for Kurosaki, was that if you weren't at the top, you didn't stand out, and even then it was hard. So I do think it's interesting, we'll get to it, that Shu seems to have a rivalry with the president, right? Rivalry with the club prez at Kurosaki. Because they're the last two to stand off against one another, and he barely beats them by one shot. So that seems interesting. But yeah, I'll give them a talking to about this, and I hope we can keep it between us. So yeah, the president's like, let's not bring our sponsors into this. Let's not get our school in trouble. The twins are stupid. I'll go talk to them. But clearly it doesn't do anything because they still come back and trash talk them later. So I'm like, maybe you should give them a sterner talking to because they're still being a bunch of bitches. And he's like, certainly. Seiya's like, yeah, okay, because he's the club president. And he's like, thank you. And gives him a look. And then, oh my God, like Shu just coming up and like pressing his hand against Minato's scar. Like, I'm sorry. I would like for anyone in the comments to please give me the heterosexual explanation. I'm waiting because it does not exist. I was like, excuse me, what? And then he's like, this press is there, and he's like, oh, how's your injury? And he whispers it and comes up so quietly that nobody else notices. Nobody else is paying attention. They're watching the twins get drug away. And so then Shu asks about the injury. I'm like, huh? And I was like, you are in my space, sir. And then he says, it's better now. So Minato gets serious there, right? So he tells Shu he's better now. Okay. But I'm like, hi. And then Shu's like, well, I'm glad to hear that. I had faith that you'd return. Okay, I hope to see you shoot again. And then Seiya's like, wait, what happened? And then I was like, I was just, just got touched by my rival. It's no big deal. It's totally fine. And Seiya's like, did he just touch him in the stomach? So yeah, so there is a question here of Minato's injury. Okay. And the big question mark surrounding it. I know that's the mystery of this season, and we'll probably touch base on it. But right now, Nanao and Ryohei don't know about it. It's Kaito knows about it, which seems like it will come up and be a thing. But so far, it's just not even. And Minato's like, okay. And he seems like that's a point of interest between them all. So, reunion. Yeah, what a reunion, right? So they start out the tournament and everything, and we do get a little bit of explanation about how things work in this. You don't clap unless somebody gets 4 shots in a row. You can say yes, but you don't do the clapping until they get all 4 of the targets. Makes sense. And so I like that it kind of mirrors in speech whenever we have awards. You just do a 1 clap, and then you do clap for the winner at the end. So there's a formality to it. There's a ceremonial aspect of it. But I like that Ryohei, he laments. He's like, I screwed this up. Ryohei feels bad. He feels bad that he revealed Minato's target panic. He feels bad about that. Now the question is, did the twins learn about the target panic from the president, or did they learn it from Shu? Did Shu know this whole time? I feel like Shu kind of knew that Minato had something going on, so did they actually learn from the president or not? Or did the president just say that somebody on their team had target panic and the twins deduced that the one that self-destructed at finals is probably the one that had it? We don't know. But Ryohei feels bad about it. But what I like about this is that Minato and Seiya are like, no, it's fine. And Minato, he tells Ryohei that it's okay because that means that he cares. He's like, I'm very lucky to be on a team that you care about me enough to try to help me. He's like, so it doesn't matter. He's like, whether they know or not, it's like, it doesn't matter to me. Because honestly, he's like, well, how does that matter? He's like, I'm not facing them. I'm facing myself. In this sport, we're just, ourselves are the enemy. And I think that's a big point of contention in this, is that the enemy is not anyone but yourself. That's the thing. And Kaito loses focus with that in this episode. Kaito keeps thinking he has to be better than Shu. And that's not how this works. It's the same thing with speech. That's why I like this series so much, in that even though Kendo is much more of a physical activity, there's this idea that in speech, you are competing in the same round with someone. You're giving a speech at the same time as someone else. And at the end of the day, though, there's no way for you to be better than them physically. You're not matching them or racing them or anything. It's that you have to give the best speech that you can give. And it just has to, your best has to be better than someone else's best. And that's kind of like Kendo. At the end of the day, Kaito thinks he's going to beat Shu, but I'm like, the only way Kaito can do that is if he's his personal best. And today he was not his personal best. He was off his game, like they said, and Shu was having a really good day. Or that's the norm, right? He seems pretty consistent. But yeah, I love that Ryohei, he's just sitting there getting all blushy, and he's like, oh, Minato, you really think that? And I was like, it's cool. He's like, take that, you. And he's like, what are you doing? And Seiya's like, so we should be sure to cheer on our team. Like, they're starting now. So I like that. I like the bonding between Ryohei and Minato and Seiya. I like that bonding. And Seiya, this whole episode's been pretty chill, pretty mellow. So far in the series, he's probably been the one we've developed the least. But I feel like with Shu here now, the latter half of this season, and the rule of 8 next episode is usually where things take a turn, and I feel like we're at this tournament that seems like the way to go with it. So I have a feeling that Seiya is going to become a more prominent member in this last half of the season alongside Shu and Minato, and then these three are going to also be, this show has done a really good job of balancing so far. We've had a lot of focus with Kaito, we've had a lot of focus with Ryohei. Seiya and Nanao are probably the two we've had least focus on, but I feel like that they're saving that for the last part of this season. And then we obviously have Minato and Shu's now involved as well. It feels like, I will say this, what feels like Free is that Free, for me, the first season of Free did not hit its stride until around episodes 5 and 6. Same thing. The first 4 episodes were fine. They were great. But then episode 7 was the one, episode 7 was the episode of Free. I was like, oh my God, this is insanity. That's this episode. So Kiyoani knows exactly what it's doing. And so the rule of 8, which will be next week's episode, is like usually where you're turning towards the final act of the season and things get crazy. And so I have a feeling that's what's going to happen with this one. So fun times. Fun times. But yeah. Oh my God. So we have our 3 girls. Seiya does well. Seiya advances to the tournament. She hits all of her marks. She's good. I like Seiya. I like we get focused on her. Yuna manages to hit 1, which is good, but our poor girl, she just was sick. Our Shiragaku, she got sick today, had a fever and couldn't perform. And it's really sad because she tried, Shiragiku did, and it's sad. She tried to do her best, and then she got really sad because she feels like she let herself down, right? And Ryohei laments, he's like, this tournament feeling's really rough. And Minato and Seiya are like, we're going to be feeling the same tomorrow when we compete. And Ryohei's like, I should have competed today, so I had a shot. That is something, though. There is something to that. Sometimes I feel like competing and getting a practice, a warm-up out of you can help loosen you up and get you ready for, the next day. So maybe, I don't know. I don't know how Kaito's going to be the next day. I don't know how he's going to be. I feel like this tournament, he's really going to let himself down, but I don't know. And it now seems like he's in a pretty decent place, but I just don't know. It's really sad. But yeah, so we cut to Nanao and Kaito saying that she forced herself to participate. So to be in her first match with everyone. And that's the thing. Kaito can kind of connect with Shiragiku because you can see in that moment that Kaito's like, I know how she feels. I wanted to be with everybody in this first match and for it to be the best it could be. So you can tell that Kaito probably understands how she feels and can relate to her, right? But these twins, They just come out of nowhere. Where's the president of Kirizaki? Take these twins away. Like, they're such bitches. Like, why can't they leave her alone? Like the conversation out in the first part makes sense because Nanao was calling out one of their girls. And it just kind of devolved from there. But there was no reason for this second conversation. They just showed up to be bitches. I don't like it. And then they make fun of her. And Nanao's like, you have no clue what's going on. And Kaito gets really mad about it. And he's like, oh, step back, Kachan. And then Shu tells him not to be rude. I'd be like, Shu, I'd been a little bit more hard on them. He's like, for a newly established club, winning is secondary. Now, that part there was a little bit of a bitch move. Because Shu kind of passive-aggressively, like he does, makes fun of their school. He says that for a new club, winning is secondary. I was like, that's such a dick thing to say. Because it's like, she was basically saying there's no way they can win because they're new. And I'm like, that's so mean. Like, you didn't have to say that. You didn't have to say that. He's basically saying just participating has meaning. And he's talking down to them. I'm like, shoo. And Kaito gets kind of pissed off at that. He's like, what are you talking about? He's like, quit talking down to us. Like, you're better than us. He's like, it's not right to mock that. And Kaito's like, to hell with that secondary crap. We came here to win. And he, like, Shu tenses up on the glove. And you can just tell Shu and Kaito's personalities are not jiving. They do not jive. They do not get along. It's very easy to see that is not the case, right? That's not working great in their favor, right? And I could see, it's funny because normally with like pairings in a series, you have like a really outspoken character that's like super gung-ho, and then maybe you have like a quieter character that's shyer. No, Fujiwara and Minato have very similar personalities. Fujiwara is just like ridiculously overly aggressively like stoic. And Minato is just kind of like quieter and introverted, but their personalities are like on the same plane, just at different levels. And Kaito is like total opposite, and she was not having it. And she was like, oh, well, fine, you're challenging me? Okay, I beg your pardon then. He's like, let's wish each other good luck then. And Kaito's like, what the hell? I feel like Kaito's gonna go to Minato and be like, what do you see in this guy? And Minato's like, lots of things. It's just crazy how their personalities do not gel. Kaito and Shu do not gel at all. But Kaito and Minato gel. So what do we do with that? It's just everything's layered and complicated, right? But I do like that Kaito, I think Kaito went about it the wrong way. He shouldn't have challenged Shu like that. But I do agree that Shu was kind of out of line mocking them and saying like, oh, well, they're not as good as us, so don't mock them. They're just trying. Participation's important. I'm like, oh, it was kind of, and I don't even know if Shu meant to be a dick about it, but it kind of came across like that, like, yikes. And Kaito's like, I don't like him. And he's just thrown off his game. He's trying to make his bow turn, and he makes the bow turn, tries to, and Masa instantly is like, and I like that Moss is instantly like, what are you doing, Kaito? And Seiya's just like, what are you doing, Kaito? And Minato and Ryohei are like, what are you doing, Kaito? And Kaito seems so smug about it, but you can't force these things. And of course, when Shu fires the arrow, it's the most beautiful thing in the world. It's gorgeous and like the perfect shot. And Minato's like, oh my God, he's amazing. And yep. And even when he doesn't fully hit the target, it's just like, he's really good. And he's like a no-gi. He's like, you're forcing it. You're forcing it too much. And then he misses because of it, so he doesn't make it out of the round. And poor Ryohei. Ryohei is like openly just like concerned. Like just like a dog being like, is everything gonna be okay? And now is just sitting behind him like, yeah, you're overdoing it. You're too stiff. Now it's like, I saw this coming a mile away. Like, what do we do about this? And Masa's just like, he's dejected. They're both Nanao and Masa are dejected because they know Kaito is better than that. They know he's good. He's just getting under his skin. And Shu doesn't seem to let anything bother him. So it's like, what do we do? And then, yeah, it's just, I feel like he grew those bangs out so they can flutter in the wind whenever he fires an arrow. I feel like that's the only way his hairstyle is like that. But he managed to get a Kaichu. He's the same as ever. And Minato feels bad for Kaito. He's like, he's ending up... Well, no, Ryohei says ending up in the same group as that guy. And I feel like when he stood up, I didn't know if Minato was going to go chase after Shu or what he was going to do. But you can tell that Minato understands Kaito's feelings, right? And they're like, what are you doing? Nanau's up. Aren't you going to cheer him on? He's like, I got to run to the bathroom. So I feel like Minato, he can relate to Kaito and wanting to compete with Shu. I feel like he stands up and he goes to the bathroom at that point because he suddenly understands exactly how Kaito feels. He's like, no. He's like, I get it. He's like, I know why you're feeling this way. He's like, I felt this way competing against him as well. And he like has to wash his own face. Like he's not even the one competing and he has to like go to the bathroom. I kept thinking he was going to stumble into someone in the bathroom. I was like, is he going to run it into Kaito or someone in the restroom? Is that going to happen? It doesn't, but Haikyuu has scarred me from bathroom encounters in sports anime. But you could tell he's like, he's not the same at all. Shu. He's even more intimidating. Yeah, so Minato thought that he could handle how Shu was in middle school, and now Shu's even more intimidating, and he feels the pressure from it. But when we see them meet again, he's like, oh, I want a bow. And he's like, you mean shoot? He's just like, oh, the term is shoot. You mean to shoot or to fire? Like, he's so straightforward with it. He's the most stoic little kid ever. He's like, oh, I see. He's like, then I want to shoot. So yeah, so Minato... When we talk about Ryohei a few episodes ago, when he referred to Minato as having like the hero vibe, yeah, Minato back then was really gung-ho and passionate. It's just now his flame has kind of been dampened a bit, right? From everything that's happened to him. His flame has been kind of dimmed. And Shu just seems like this constant flow of water that's just like, just even keel. Does not get excited, does not get emotional, just constant. A constant steady stream, right? Whereas Minato seems like a big wind that rises and then it can die down. And Kaito seems the same way, only like a fire, right? And so I feel like Minato and Kaito are much more similar than they appear. And maybe Shu and Minato are much more different than they appear. And Minato gets a little bit, he gets kind of, you know, nervous in that moment too, realizing just how good Shu is. I'm glad that when he goes around the corner to see Inogi and he sees how sad he was, I thought Inogi would be crying, but instead he's just really frustrated. Bless his heart. I'm glad as much as I wanted Minato to like go to Kaito and comfort him, I'm kind of glad that he didn't, because I feel like Kaito didn't need that right now. Kaito just needed to decompress himself. But I do want Minato to eventually talk to Kaito about Shu and maybe talk to him about like being competitive and him wanting to also be competitive against Shu. I want them to have a conversation about it. And so it'll be curious to see if we actually get that moving forward, to see if that's actually something that happens. So we'll see, right? But I felt so bad for Kaito having a Rin moment. It's the damn trees! The confession in the trees! I was expecting there to be the confession in the trees, and there wasn't. So glad that didn't happen. That's a big trope in Free, is that everybody confesses in the trees. But Kaito was having a Rin moment where he absolutely had a Rin moment in this episode. Yeah, no. Our redheads, our Diva Shark and this boy, they don't really have animals attached to them in this, but yeah, Kaito was having a Rin moment of self-doubt where he didn't perform as well as he should have. But so now what's going to happen with that? Oh, I want Kaito to not slam his fist down. But yeah, the thing of it is that Minato knows exactly how Kaito feels. And so now I want them to have a conversation with one another. So maybe we'll get to that. But anyway, the boys' preliminaries got down to the last two. The 8th shot Kaichu to a sudden death showdown. Yeah. So basically, you keep on, if I'm understanding this right, you need 2 to advance to the next round. And then you need to keep hitting the targets. And I guess they advance it to where it gets down to where whoever shot the most back to back to back, it keeps going till somebody misses. That makes sense. And it got down to Fujiwara and the president, and he missed the last shot. And of course, Shu gets it. Motomura missed his 4th shot. And you can just see that you can see Minato. He's getting competitive again, right? So Minato, he has that competitiveness. Okay. He has that competitiveness. And in a lot of senses, Shu is showing off for Minato. Shu is showing off for Minato. Now, he will probably not say that, but he's been training all this time to be the best. But there's, you know, what fun is it if you don't have a good rival, right? If you're the best, what fun is it unless you have a good rival to compete against? So I don't want Minato to implode, though, under the pressure. That's the thing. I don't want him and Kaito to end up in the same boat. And so they say that Shiragiku's feeling better, that Tommy Sensei sent her home so that she'll heal up and be okay. And I like that the girls were like, oh, good. And then now it's even like, oh, good, too. Like, they're all happy. And then you managed to advance to the tournament, Sayo. Yeah, and then now made it to the 2nd round. Okay. So, yeah, that was good. And he's like, the rest of you worked very hard, too. And you can tell that Kaito, like, deflates with that. He's like, I didn't do what I should have done. He's like, I know I'm better than that. And Masa's like, what's with all this doom and gloom? He's like, you've still got the group competition tomorrow. He's like, come on. And I like Tommy's like, tomorrow a new wind will blow. So don't forget what happened today, but don't dwell on it. Like, learn from your mistakes and move on. And he tells him not to practice today, to have a good meal, wash up, and get some good night's rest. And Masa, you can tell Masa, I feel like Masa connects with Kaito and probably will with Minato too, because Masa seems like he was very competitive as well. And so he probably knows exactly what Kaito is thinking. And I love that he stuck around and talked to Kaito. I was really hoping that he would. I was like, come on, don't let Kaito not get a talking to. And I love that he puts his hand on his shoulder. And he tells Kaito, and you can tell that Kaito's just like, and he looks up at him, and he looks like he's about to cry. It's like, oh! And he's like, I told you. He's like, look, Kaito. And now kind of like stays back. He says, bow turning is a result, not a goal. You need to drop this obsession. Stop trying to make it happen. I know it's hard for you right now to do that, but... And then now he's just sitting there like he needed to hear it from Masa, right? And then we go back to their house, and it's back at, I'm assuming it is at Kaito's house because there's all the CDs and everything, right? Or is this Nanao's house? I don't know. We don't see the poster, but I'm also like, they're like hanging out late. Do they live together? No, because he told him not to be late. But he's watching Kaito. And Kaito's still trying to like practice, even though he was told not to. It's like, and you can tell that now just feels bad for him. It's like, what do we do? But he smiles at the end like, Kaito's going to be Kaito. What can we do about him? Like, this baka. So I can't tell. It's like, and now watching over Kaito, it's like, if they're related, it's like a brotherly, cousinly bond. If they're not related, then it's definitely more than that. But, y'all said they were related, so. And then here's the thing. Minato has been looking through all of his stuff, all of his gear, trying to find this one thing, and he finds an old little cell phone from the past that has a picture of them. Shu seems like he's so detached. Like, Shu is not like Minato's super excited with his bow and everything, and Shu's just like super detached. Is that just Shu and his personality? He's just very detached and reserved and like socially not inept, but he just feels like he doesn't pick up on some social cues. Like, he just seems kind of like distant and out of it. Whereas Minato's like, Minato's like this big bright light in this picture of the two of them, and Shu is just kind of there, right? It's interesting. I want to get a picture of that because it's kind of cute. But yeah, the purple and the green. But the fact that I totally relate to Minato because I've kept little trinkets and stuff, and he's clearly kept the phone, like, with their picture on it, from middle school. He's like, back then I won some and I lost some. But now, he's like, can I even compete at all? He's like, back then I won and lost, but he's like, now, am I even close to Shu's level? And he looks up at the mirror like, what do I do? And like he's thinking about, I've just got to do the best that I can. He's like, I've got to take one step forward. I feel like Minato's like, I'm not at the level I can compete against Shu. Like he's gotten better and better. But he's like, I've got to make a step forward somehow. And he's like, I can't just sit here and wallow. I've got to keep moving forward. This episode, oh my God. It very much is like Free. Yep, this is like a season 1 of Free. Season 1 of Free, the first 5-6 episodes were great. And then around episodes 6 and 7, it took this turn and I was obsessed. And episode 5 was really good of this series. Episode 6 was really good. And now I'm obsessed. And now I'm going to try not to binge. I literally have no choice. I'm not going to be able to watch for at least another like week and a half, 2 weeks after this episode. So I have no choice but to wait. So y'all get to catch up with me now. But I am going to wait. I'm going to wait and see comments at least for episodes 4, 5, and 6. And then come back with episode 8. The rule of 8. The rule of 8 is that in a 12-episode series, the 8th episode is always really, really good. And I'm very excited because it's going to be Shu and Minato possibly facing off tomorrow in the group competition. But Kaito's the one that starts it, so that's going to be interesting. So I don't know. I don't know. We'll see though, right? We'll see. So I'm so excited to see what's going to happen. I'm very curious to hear your thoughts down below. Please no spoilers, hints, or clues. This show and the mystery and everything is getting so good, and I'm really excited to see what's going to happen. So we shall see. But in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon with more Tsurune. Bye.